aggressive should Sean Payton be with Jared Stidham against the New England Patriots? And are the Denver Broncos potentially running a little bit low at one very important position on offense? All things to come on today's rundown. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel. You can find us at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you're watching us on X or on Facebook, like, comment, share, subscribe, turn on those post notifications so you never miss a moment with us. Got plenty to get into today as it relates to the Denver Broncos. And a couple of questions that I think are circulating around the Mile High City this week and will continue to until we get to see how it plays out on Sunday. And obviously, a lot of it is centered around what the game plan is going to look like for Sean Payton with Jared Stidham at the helm instead of Bo Nix. Obviously, we've grown accustomed to over the last two seasons what the Broncos offense unfolds like and tends to look like with Bo. But that's not the case anymore. And Jared Stidham, who's been with the organization going on 3 seasons now, has been in the NFL since 2019, certainly has a rapport and an affinity for Sean Payton, and the feeling is mutual, as you'll hear from Sean himself in just a little bit. But Jared Stidham hasn't attempted a pass one time in the last 2 seasons. I believe, if memory serves, he's the only quarterback to not attempt to pass, the only backup quarterback, I should say, to not attempt to pass in the last 2 seasons for any NFL team. And with one game at Empower Field at Mile High standing between the Denver Broncos and a return to the Super Bowl in Santa Clara, where they last won it in Super Bowl 50, it still feels like the Broncos can win this game. But it's not going to rest on the shoulders of Jared Stidham. It's not going to rest solely on the defense or on the run game or anything in particular. Everything is going to have to work in concert. That being said, I'm not 100% sure we are going to see a drastically different game plan than what we saw with Bo Nix. Not because Bo and Jarrett aren't stylistically different quarterbacks. I do think they have their own individual and unique strengths and weaknesses. And you would think with a quarterback, a backup quarterback making their first start in such a high-profile, high-stress situation like the AFC Championship game, you would think that the Broncos or that team, whoever it would be, would lean on a little bit more of a conservative game plan, rely on a defense that has led the NFL in sacks for the last 2 seasons and is loaded with high-powered, highly paid star power. But that's just not how Sean Payton operates, is it? It's not. It's not. He's a call your shot. He's a football slinging Jesse. He believes in himself more than anyone else around him or in the NFL circle that he feels so proud of can doubt him. It's why he has his double latte moment saying that the Denver Broncos this season are the 7th team he's ever thought could win a Super Bowl. And boy, doesn't that look pretty good in hindsight. It's why he said Bo Nix is going to be a top 4 or 5 guy in the next handful of years. And boy, does he look like he's on a pace or trajectory to enter that conversation in that time frame. It's why he said what he said when he first got here about how bad things were with Nathaniel Hackett and with Russell Wilson and what needs to happen to move forward. And I'll be damned if he hasn't proved a lot of that right as well. He walks the walk about as much as he talks the talk. And that's why when I heard him step up to the podium yesterday and say this about Jared Stidham, I took note, and you should too. Take a listen to Sean Payton and his thoughts on Jared Stidham with the mindset going forward against the Patriots.
With so much at stake, how do you just convey to Jared, like, hey, go out and be yourself and play football? Do you have?
That's his personality. Like, he's gonna rip it, you know, and that'll be our approach. I mean, hey, he's got this calm demeanor that I think suits him well. He's played in big games, college, and, you know, I said this at the start of the season. I felt like our 2 was inside the best 32.
I felt like our 2 was inside the best 32. And the most important sentence there, I think he's going to rip it. He actually didn't even say, I think. I ad-libbed that. He said he's going to rip it. If you're Mike Vrabel, the New England Patriots, if you're looking for a scouting report on how Sunday is going to go offensively from the Broncos and what their mindset is going into this game, Sean Payton just gave it to you. Jarrett Stidham is going to rip it. Whether he will or won't succeed is going to be up to him and a handful of other factors. But Sean Payton stepping up to the podium and speaking as confidently and as directly as he did about Jarrett Stidham and the way that their mindset is offensively makes it pretty clear to me that that's what they intend to do. They intend to let it rip. And Sean Payton has given me the confidence to be able to take him at his word when he says these things. I don't think there's a lot of gamesmanship going on here. So for everyone out there in New England and over there across on the East Coast, there's your game plan. I think Jarrett Stidham is going to go out there and absolutely let it fly on Sunday. When you observe his demeanor, as I got the opportunity to yesterday during the practice and open locker room portion, as you saw Sean Payton say at the podium with the clip that we just played, saying that's his personality. I don't have to tell him to be himself. He's just going to go out there and rip it because that's who he is. I'm taking Sean, Jarrett, and the Denver Broncos by extension at their word. I don't think we're going to see that much of a different game plan, especially because the Broncos don't have a significant run game to speak of to be able to lean on and ease a backup quarterback like Jarrett Stidham in. The running backs with Bo Nix in the game against the Bills only got 10 carries combined. Bo Nix out-carried them over the course of that game. So there's not a significant run game to lean on. J.K. Dobbins' status is still up in the air. You've got banged-up wide receivers that are hopefully coming back and progressing, which we'll get to in a minute. But I don't think the game plan is going to be all that different. I'm taking Sean Payton at his word. I think he's going to go out there, put the ball in Jarrett Stidham's hands, and let him rip it. And if I had to be a betting man, which I've been known to be, I think Jarrett Stidham's going to look pretty good, or at least better than many people nationally are giving him credit for or expecting the Broncos to perform because of the injury they sustained at the end of overtime against the Bills. It is time to hit the turn, presented by The Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier outdoor golf bar and entertainment venue. With their miniature golf setup and heated patio, they have the perfect cure for your winter blues. Touched on it just a handful of minutes ago. The wide receiver room for the Broncos feels like it might be running a little bit lean ahead of Sunday's AFC Championship game. We saw both Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin leave the game against the Bills early for different reason. Bryant for a concussion, which ends up being his second concussion in the last calendar month. He also missed the Christmas Day game against the Chiefs because of a concussion that he suffered in the game, the loss ultimately against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now you've got two concussions in a relative 4-week span for Pat Bryant, who prior to leaving the game was on an absolute heater. He caught 3 passes in the first, 6 plays of the game for 32 yards or so, and looked like he was going to be a major part of that game plan. And that has been consistent with the way Pat Bryant has progressed in his rookie campaign under Sean Payton. His blocking ability, his leadership ability, and character traits have been lauded by his teammates and the coaching staff, and he has slowly but surely worked his way into a steady part of Sean Payton's rotation. Troy Franklin left with a hamstring injury and was not even targeted in the game before leaving with said hamstring injury. And at that point, the Broncos had 3 healthy wide receivers on their active roster. You had Courtland Sutton, who was a bit of a non-factor for big portions of the game against the Bills. You had Marvin Mims, who was a major factor and had one of his better games as a pro. And then you had Lil Jordan Humphrey, who dropped a touchdown pass, redeemed himself by catching another awesome one, and was clearly, as he has been on many of Sean Payton's squad, somebody that Payton had his eye on, even if it was out of the corner in most circumstances. And then you had Evan Ingram and Adam Prentice being used in wide receiver capacity to kind of make up for that. I do think this wide receiver room and the way that they handle things over the course of this week leading up to the game is very, very noteworthy. Because you can't have 3 healthy and capable wide receivers going into a game and expect it to be overly successful. They managed to do it against the Buffalo Bills, and it took a pretty Herculean effort, including overtime with multiple, I believe, 4 or 5 forced turnovers in order to get that victory. They called up Brandon Johnson and signed him back this week. You'll remember Brandon Johnson, the UCF product. He spent a couple of seasons here in Denver prior to this season. Had some success and some rapport with Russell Wilson, but also looked pretty good in the final couple of games that Jared Stidham started after Russell Wilson was benched. So maybe there's some rapport there, and that leads to Sean Payton and George Payton calling Brandon Johnson up earlier this week and telling him, time to get on a plane. It's time to get back to Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. That, to me, is an insurance policy that hints at the fact that they don't 100% know, they being the Broncos, how things are going to shake out with Pat Bryant and with Troy Franklin this week. It's a bit of a tricky situation because Pat Bryant having 2 concussions in a 4-week span leaves plenty of speculation out there that says, I don't know if the NFL, the Broncos, or the team doctors are going to clear him to be able to play. He was a participant in practice, as was Troy Franklin, on a limited capacity during the observable portion of practice. So there is at least some progress in that direction there. But the acquisition of Brandon Johnson, the reacquisition, I should say, and the fact that your receiver room without those 2 key guys is Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Little Jordan Humphrey, makes me a little bit anxious, I'll say, to see how that room is going to round out, because Jared Stidham is going to need everything around him that he can get to work smoothly in order to bring the Broncos to victory on Sunday. That includes the defense, that includes special teams, but that certainly includes his fellow offensive teammates like the wide receiver room and some help in the run game. Sean Payton is the master of schemes, and I think he will certainly have opportunities and things schemed up to make things easier for Stidham. He was certainly in his bag against the Buffalo Bills. But I think a lot of the offensive success could hinge on Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin being not just available, but available and capable of contributing in a meaningful way. Because if they're not, then you've just used up 2 roster spots that could have gone to somebody else. And you would hope that they wouldn't be better than those 2 options in theory, because Bryant and Franklin are key components of this offense. But if Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin aren't able to go out there on a play-by-play basis and really contribute, or if the risk, especially in the case of Pat Bryant, is just too great of suffering another concussion, which would be 3 in a span of about 6 weeks, I just think that that's going to be a tough situation for the Broncos to have to navigate. Just something to keep an eye on. We've got a couple days left of practice and observable opportunities. But I think that Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant being available and in a capacity, in a full non-restrictive capacity to be able to be there for Jared Stidham is going to be a massive, massive thing for this Broncos offense, and their ability to counteract the New England Patriots defense that's playing pretty well, all things considered, in this postseason. Going to keep an eye on it all for you at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan and on our Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan YouTube channel. I told you before, and I'll tell you again, like and subscribe to this channel at Denver Sports 104.3. Short-form content, long-form content, radio, digital, unique, original, Nuggets, Avalanche, Broncos, Rockies, Buffs, Rams, whatever you want, we've got it there for you at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan and at Denver Sports 104.3 on YouTube. The countdown continues as we near closer to Conference Championship weekend, which the Broncos are firmly a part of. As Jared Stidham and others pointed out earlier this past afternoon or this past week, the Broncos are one of 4 teams still practicing in the National Football League right now, and that is pretty damn special. Can't wait to see how things progress. And like I've said, basically every day this week since we got over the initial shock of the Bo Nix injury, I'm not counting out this Denver Broncos team without Bo Nix and with all the uphill battles that they've had to face all year. I'm not counting them out against the New England Patriots. I'm not counting them out to return to the Super Bowl 10 years after they last won it in the same place where they won it before, and therefore you shouldn't either. We'll catch you tomorrow at noon for the next rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.